Let's bring you some weather news now. The Lurtsburg Pass on the N9 between Graaff-Reinet and Middelburg in the Eastern Cape has been closed to traffic due to snowfall. The SA Weather Service has issued an orange alert level 6 for disruptive snowfall over high-lying areas in the province. Snow is also expected in parts of KZN, including in Kokstad and the Drakensberg Mountains. Emergency services say they are on high alert. Well, as temperatures continue to drop across the country, authorities have flagged the high risk of fires, now synonymous with winter in South Africa's informal settlements. For more on this, we're joined now by Human Settlements Minister Thembi Simelane. Minister, thanks for your time this afternoon, and thank you for your patience in waiting to speak to us here on 405. I mean, that's the case, isn't it? Winter comes and we see a spike in fires and devastation to the lives of the people living in informal settlements over these months of the year.
Oh yes, you are correct. It comes with devastation. In fact, with the increment in inclement weather patterns, ordinarily, we will expect less of less of rain in winter. But over the years, you do find other provinces also engulfed in quite a lot of wet weather conditions, which also makes informal settlement life unbearable. And the opposite of that creates the fires, because you find alternative heating mechanisms where power is not easily available, or where power is not easily affordable. Then our people resort to fire mechanisms, either using paraffin or either using coal, izimbawula and all that. Sometimes because of the coldness that the shack structure brings when it's cold, the sheets, and then corrugated sheets, it then creates fires, either the light trips and it fall their children sometimes who are unable to really take care of such amenities that are being used by the household. So either way, it puts us in a very, very great difficulty.
So when, Minister, are we going to stop being reactive and start actually being reactive, particularly insofar as this issue is concerned? I mean, it's incredibly tough to live in the conditions that those hundreds of thousands of people millions of people who live in informal settlements. It's incredibly hot in summer because of some of the materials used to build the structures. And then freezing cold during the winter months. And as you say, electricity is expensive. It's difficult to come by power sources in informal settlements. And so various unsafe ways of keeping warm are utilized out of necessity.
Well, we're doing our best with the allocation that we have. In fact, even roping business in increasing our social housing capacity, to increase even our first home financing, to reduce the list and the waiting list and the period for people who are needing social amenity in a form of housing from government. The fact of the matter is we're currently sitting at 4,075 informal settlements, with people who are waiting for any type of intervention that government can be able to offer. We are unable to meet the demand. We are now looking into alternatives of ensuring that we contribute strongly and positively into generating and tending our projects in a long and a sustainable way, that they also create employment, so that we reduce on the list. So we're no longer responding to human settlements as only a social amenity, but it needs to respond to all the priorities of the 7th administration. So one, to be able to say we will be able to afford and be allocated the billions that we need to be able to house our nation. It could be looking for really too much. But we are reviewing our housing policy as well, to say that the house belong, or that the government needs to provide, needs to be coming to assist the vulnerable sector of society, that is the elder, people with disability, and child-headed household. And child-headed household does not really include the category of people who could be able to assist to find employment, but it will mean where both parents are deceased and children are underage, and they are a responsibility of social development on the other and basic education on the other, as part of them now carrying a responsibility of being parents. That means that we are trying to reduce as well a list, which we are then taking over into a category of our social housing, like, for example, reclaiming our old government buildings, which Public Works has also handed over some few over to us so that we can revamp them, which will be much affordable, and then be able to allocate them to people who need housing and who need spaces in convenience areas and are walking closer and working into the localities. And that will free quite a lot of our BNG budget to be able to deal with the informal settlement. But it is really a long way coming.
Yeah, and it's essential that the various government departments work together, as you say. Insofar as the latest situation is concerned, you talked about the number of thousands of informal settlements we have across the country. There was a fire just yesterday, I believe, in Silvertown, Khayelitsha. Over 140 people have been left homeless. We've shown our viewers some visuals from the scene of that fire. It's incredibly cold in Cape Town, cold and wet, as it usually is over the winter period. What's the immediate kind of intervention here? And I'm sure it doesn't just come from your department.
Well, yes, not only from our department. We share, for example, in this example that we are making with the city of Cape Town, which overall has been affected not only in Silverton, in Nyanga as well, and in Philippi, a total combined of 279 shacks burnt down. The municipality of Stellenbosch is dealing with 9 burnt shacks. Oudtshoorn local is also dealing with about 91. So in total, it's around 371 as we speak, that jointly as a team we're alternatively providing assistance. And we're expecting that our fire kit, which is a building material which gets to be distributed from our informal settlement support grant, will be delivered. They are all the teams jointly dealing with their supply chain processes, but we're hopeful that by tomorrow we'll distribute. What we do in part as part of our fire response or as our emergency response kit, really, whether it's a damage through water or floods or fire, we provide building material as in the form of sheets, in the form of windows, in the form of doors, and in the form of an amenity that will be able to be rebuilt in that space. But we've also allocated a portion of that grant to cities, and I think it is about 10%, that they need to implement what we call reblocking. You know, in an informal settlement, they built in a too congested manner. That sometimes they don't even leave space for a road, for even an emergency vehicle to be able to pass through, to offer assistance, even in terms of fire, which sometimes is what makes it difficult for cities or municipalities to be responsive fast and quick enough to cool down on the fire. That they need to utilize that grant as well to be unable to allocate in a land that could be close by the reblocking projects. We do face challenges there. Some of our community members refuse to move. They refuse to be relocated. But we are taking one step at a time. We do a lot of social facilitation in terms of engagement. We relocate them so that you could be able to put temporary residential units and allocate there for the building that could be permanent. Of course, duplication of beneficiaries, particularly in provinces like Gauteng. Western Cape is also not exonerated from this problem. A person who's a beneficiary somewhere in the Eastern Cape, then relocates, build a shack in Western Cape, unfortunately cannot be allocated a house precisely because he or she has already benefited into the social facilitation program of government in terms of provision of the house, which means they permanently become residents of the city of Cape Town in this instance, but staying in a shack. And we can't reissue a house of a BNG to the same ID number that has already benefited from government. So those are challenges that we are experiencing.
Yeah, certainly. They are challenges, Minister, and they are long-standing challenges, aren't they? I mean, you talk about these various incidents in and around Cape Town insofar as fires at informal settlements are concerned. The Cape Town Metro has a particular housing crisis. It has one of the largest concentrations of informal settlements in the country. And this challenge that you talk about when it comes to dealing with the housing backlog is one that we are still trying to find a solution to. How do we tackle this in a systematic way, notwithstanding the fact that, as you say, there is at times duplication when it comes to people who are applying for housing in different provinces?
Well, one way is really to ask ourselves, why are people moving from one area to the other? And the response you get is mostly about opportunities that are not found in other areas and in areas where the people are residing. And then they will move. So eThekwini, Johannesburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, and the Western Cape, they carry almost 60% of the 4,075 informal settlement that I spoke about, with minor drops in other areas, not that they are not important. But what we are saying is that, and they are the beneficiaries, for example, of the hugest portion of the grants that we receive as national, including provinces, of what gets to be allocated. Close to that, 60% goes to the allocation to metros. But one can underscore that that is still a drop in an ocean for them to be able to deal with the migration patterns that they're experiencing. But I think it is also important for municipalities to put systems in place to guard onto their own land, to stop illegal occupation and illegal utilization of land. And in most instances, you do find that such measures are not taken by municipalities. They leave an informal settlement until the legal process for them to be able to relocate or remove people legally becomes untenable and costly for them. And that perpetuates a problem. But they need to be able to have teams as well that will make sure that if you have a property, you must guard it. You must make sure that you are responsive. That is why metros have got a portion of their budgets allocating to community safety. They've got Metro Police, they've got community safety police to assist them to deal with such instances. But in most instances, that is not taken care of and it is not avoided. But of course, we've got to respond into our rural investment strategy economically as government to make sure that the smaller cities are also able to create the convenience and assist people economically so that they are able to live where they are because they can work where they are and Minister, they can play where they are.
I'm sure you'll agree, as with the many other challenges we face in the country, the housing challenge is not just a housing challenge. It is one with various other permutations, as you say, the issue about access to economic opportunities. Thembi Simelane is the Minister of Human Settlements.